And this is the Wisdom Table coming to you from the James Weldon Johnson houses in East Harlem, USA. The program that you're about to hear, the Wisdom Table, does not reflect the views, attitudes, whims, deeds, or any other proclivities of the management of the community center, nor that of the administration of the housing development. However, the program does reflect the research done by the participants in the program, live and living color and studio by phone interview. And of course, there is you in the near future, the first-class citizens of the world. Today, we are honored to have a guest in studio. He's an educator, and the question on the table deals with the intelligence and aptitude of black children. The question is asked of Brother Professor Sims of Manhattan Community College. Can black children learn and master math and science?
Well, the answer is unanimously yes. And I'll give a little backdrop on that. Through my years in teaching mathematics and science, since, I should say really the 1989, as a tutor at the State University of New York at Farmingdale, through chairing mathematics at Grambling State University, and now Associate Professor of Mathematics at Borough of Manhattan Community College. The reason why I just stated those time periods is to say that I have trained students and worked with students in mathematics, and I've seen students perform on black students, that is, on all different levels. On the levels of mastery, I've seen black students master mathematics, students of all ages, and when I say it, I mean generally 9 years old up through the college level. I've seen them master mathematics. I've seen students actually become creators of ideas in mathematics. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I've seen black students be reluctant to use their God-given abilities in mathematics.
Explain that one.
That one, their reluctance has to do with their psychological training and point of view of themselves as mathematicians, scientists, or even creators. We're engaging students that have this point of view of themselves, which isn't true, of course, but they have the point of view that they can't do mathematics. Some of them are just annoyed with the effort because of just certain cultural training that they have, where they may not be annoyed in playing video games, and they'll put up an effort to struggle to play video games. They may not be annoyed with the struggle involved with sports, because it's culturally acceptable to struggle in sports and to show out in sports. And even in video games. I mean, I have a son who still plays video games, he's a college graduate. But it's culturally acceptable and fun and struggling to achieve a certain level in video games and gaming and in sports. However, in mathematics and science, where you need the same amount of discipline and focus to do well, those students that I'm speaking about that are reluctant don't want to go through the struggle and to focus on master and create in mathematics. However, the students black students, I'm still on the same topic, that I've taught that were willing to struggle, many of them have become creators of mathematical concepts. Many of them have taught me, even while I was teaching them, because they were having fun. To them, it was like a sport, you see. And we engaged. So the answer is yes, all of our children can master mathematics.
Okay, so there is a reality of the lack of black performance in science and math among our young people. That is a reality. You're saying that you're meeting up with that same group and you're able to do with them what others have written off that they can't do, meaning they're, from the standpoint of teaching, you know, I can't work with this group. So what do you do in order to get them into another zone, an achieving zone?
Well, I'll go with what I've been doing lately in interdisciplinary science and clean energy. I have a program where students, it's a hands-on clean energy program, where students experiment with wind turbines, hydrogen fuel cell technology, solar panel technology. They don't only experiment with that, they take measurements. We use meters, we use rulers, we use different types of measuring devices necessary to measure voltage, current, calculate power, measure wind speed. In this hands-on activity, students are doing mathematics. I'm not speaking to them at the board, you see. They're actually taking measurements. And then for each measurement, for instance, wind speed, we call it S. So here's the algebra now, right? Power, we call that P. The area of the wind turbine as it's rotating creates a circle, right? So you get the area of a circle. So all of these things, the students begin to see how wind power is directly related to the area of the wind turbine, of course the wind speed, and the air density, which is a constant at sea level. But students quickly engage in this. I mean, and I'll give you an overview first, and then I'll tell you about my 9 and 10-year-olds at Boys and Girls Club of Harlem. But yeah, students quickly engage in this because they're actually taking physical measurements, right, which is quantification. Many people say our students need number sense. Well, allow them to exercise quantifying things, right? If you're baking, right? I like to bake, right? But I used to measure a lot when I baked, but now I'm comfortable. But, yeah. So through baking, you get to measure quantities, right? And then you use these quantities in proportion. That's direct mathematics. Of course, students quickly get money. Of course, that's easy when you teach. But then all of these calculations that we think are fancy, the calculations and mastery of the calculations just comes from regular exercise of it, where these basic calculations are in our home environment, in our culture. Just like we exercise, again, sports, basketball in particular, and gaming. Students exercise that to such a degree that well, you see them, they could walk down the street bouncing a ball, they could look at a building and the ball's going back and forth through their legs, right? So I've seen many of our students master mathematics that way, where they can just call up mathematical ideas and apply them, like in the middle of doing something else, you see. So this is great. But now to the students at the Boys and Girls Club of Harlem, that were involved in our clean energy program in this was in 2017. I think it was spring of 2017 or summer. Well, first we had a junior high school group, and they did very well. We even did 3D printing. The students designed things on the computer and printed it out, which is outright engineering and geometry. But the 9 and 10-year-olds, I only had them for five sessions. In the fifth, well, really by the fourth session, they were solving algebra problems on the board that related to wind energy and solar panel technology. Within 5 sessions, I have it all on video because my partner that was with me at the time, Melvin McCrae, he's a retired journalist from ABC. He said, look, seeing is believing. If you don't videotape this, you could say it all you want, right? And people say, oh, okay, you know, this guy's just making this up to say black students could do this and that. Well, we've been videotaping everything now, Brother Leroy, and I have the students standing, because you know the board was kind of tall, high, so they stand on chairs. These were 9 and 10-year-olds to solve these problems. One sister, she said she didn't even want to use a calculator, right? She says, I do it in my head. I do it in my head, right? And she just was this figure, and she was throwing down. right? So I'm saying this to go back to the answer, yes, our students can master mathematics. And also they can master mathematics in a short period of time if we allow them to do mathematics in their general reality, you see, rather than mathematics as separate as just solving some problems to pass a test, you know, something like that. So I've never taught mathematics towards taking tests before. I may have tried it once or twice, but I've never, I didn't really teach mathematics from the angle or point of view of taking tests, of test taking.
Explain that.
I teach students mathematics from the point of view where they can, I'll just say it, use mathematics in the proper terms to achieve their goals. And that's not just using numbers. That's using the sense of, if you want to achieve goals, you have to organize people, you have to organize resources, and you have to organize energy, right? According to your plan to achieve a goal, right? That's the highest form of mathematics. It's nothing to do with taking a test. There's nothing to do with taking a test, right? You have to organize people, resources, and energy in order to achieve your goals. All of us in this room have to do that at some point, whether we have family goals, personal goals, or community goals. And from that point of view, I teach mathematics to students, whether I use science or we use finance or what have you. Those are just different areas that we have to use for our conveniences. But the main idea is that students get comfortable with postulating ideas in their mind and bringing these ideas out to achieve their goals. Otherwise, they pass a test, okay, you get a clap, right? You might make a little money, you get a clap. But when you achieve a goal, especially in a team-oriented sense, and now I'm speaking sports, because that's one of the latest efforts that my wife and I are on. She said, look, we need to use the students' ability of teamwork, the teamwork ability that they use in basketball, and transport that to teamwork capability in sport, in science and tech startups. Because when you start up a company, it's usually a team of people, right? Except you're not shooting the ball through a hoop, which is the goal.
But you're using your knowledge.
You're using your knowledge, you're creating, and you're using teamwork, right? And also in music. I happen to be a musician as well. I can tell you, I play the bass, right? And you transport that creativity into the creativity of business as well. And all this is still mathematics that I'm speaking. I'm just not saying it in terms of algebra and calculus, but it's real life mathematics. So the stuff we do on paper, that we can call it mathematics, is funny. That's a small exercise that we do on paper. That's a small exercise.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that versus teaching them to a test, you teach them within the realm of a concept, that is achieving a goal. You verbally give that to them. You verbally say that to them.
Yes, it's intentional, right? So what I mean by intentional, I verbally tell them the purpose for mathematics is to, well, I usually say it might sound esoteric. The purpose for mathematics is to learn how to master the use of energy and matter over time and space. But the children understand exactly what I'm talking about, you see, because and this is how physicists speak, you see,
How long
scientists
you
speak
can
this way.
talk and how long you can build a house.
Yes, building that, right, you're organizing matter and energy
Still
over
gotta
time and
have
space.
math.
That's power and force and wisdom, right? And so, I aim at that, and I tell the students this, and that especially at 9 to 10 years old, they're straight. It's not, you know, I can't. Usually the students like 18, 19 are a little funny because they've been trained, only because they've been trained a certain way. But if as long as they engage in some hands-on project, and they see that they're doing mathematics, then that purpose is known to them. Nothing's vague, and they have a drive, and they don't mind struggling. Recently, we built a solar shed in East New York. That was a part of the East New York Restoration Center project. And we trained students on how solar panels work. We went through the physics of it. Usually my older son, who was at my interview, he was, I guess he was like 8 years old. And right now he's a graduate in mathematics and chemistry. But he was teaching the students the physics of solar panels and how the energy is converted on the sun electricity. And then when it got to the point where we had to actually use carpentry to frame, right? We had to use the law of similar triangles, the same stuff you see on these SAT and Regents exams where you're sitting there like, like, oh God, right? So as soon as we started, we cut the wood and everything, we're framing it up, students were like, oh, I saw this on the test. I said, yeah, but now you're doing mathematics. Mm-hmm. You're not solving this, so that your mother's
solving
happy
the problem,
with
you're
your test.
doing it.
You're doing it, right. And the law, we had to use the law of similar triangles to build a roof. Simply, you say, okay, the roof is used a triangle, right? And you don't put the roof up haphazardly. You put it up according to some mathematical laws. And it's set beautifully. And the students were happy. I was happy. I was almost in tears. Because I never did carpentry before. But we had a brother to come in and train us in one day. Just took one day. So that's another part of our program now. Not just clean energy science, but also carpentry and lead into the trades, where students are doing that. Anytime you're doing carpentry, you're doing geometry. You're doing it.
Well, it took me 2 years to learn how to do algebra. 8th grade and 9th grade. And in my mind, I didn't think it was necessary to know algebra. What am I going to do with algebra?
Right.
But later on down the line, I kind of figured it out. You're going to need it at one time or another.
Yes.
So,
Yes, especially if you intend to build something or participate in creating systems or something like that. But I'll say this. When I was in the 7th grade, I wasn't mastering mathematics either. My mother made me struggle through my times table. Now I'm going back 8 years old. I hated that. I'll just say, yeah, I hated that. Doing the times table. She was cooking dinner, and she's like, Brett, what's the 8th times table? And I say it, and I mess up, and I have to start over, right? So I didn't have this, I'll rephrase it. We have a natural ability to do mathematics, but most children don't have a natural ability to struggle and focus on things that's not juicy or pleasant to them, right? I met very few youngsters that would just, keep on in mathematics, at 9 and 10 years old and stuff like that. But my mother, like a coach would do, made me go through the discipline of that, right? So that by the time I'm in high school, which I still was going up and down, let's be honest, with my grades. But while I was in high school, I still had a culture around me. I had cousins that were in college. My Uncle James was a builder. He was an engineer, a mechanical engineer. And I would see all these books in the basement. They lived downstairs from us, we lived upstairs. So there was also a cultural influence in my household towards mathematics and science. And my cousins always arguing philosophy and I would say it outright, how the black man is God and the science of that. So those were our general arguments, right or wrong. Right or wrong. That was the area that we was debating. So this was in a general environment. And this is also a part of the solution, Brother Leroy and guests, to having our students learn how to struggle in mathematics and science. Right? Our parents, of course our parents need to apply pressure, just as coaches apply pressure on the football field or basketball field. We need to have things in our children's environment that intentionally have them do geometry, like building a bed. Like if you get these IKEA kits or whatever these kits are, and you gotta put all these doggone plots together, right? Children usually like doing that, right? That's
There you
geometry.
go.
It's applied geometry, putting up bookshelves, right? Doing that sort of thing over and over again has their mind, that's mind into the physical world, mind to the physical world. They're achieving a goal, right? We see it as, oh, they're just putting up a bed. No, that's intentionally having the children practice geometry.
The hands-on is key,
Yes.
regardless of the age. Hands-on in terms of the learning process. There's a book written by Dr. down in Maryland, and he talks about the young men not achieving, unmotivated and not achieving, undermotivated and underachieving. In essence, that's the title of the book. Where he winds up, his name is Leonard Sachs, S-A-X, Dr. Leonard Sachs, psychologist or psychiatrist. He winds up with the formula of hands-on. Hands-on is critical for young men learning and having a desire to, or being self-motivated within that.
Yeah.
And that's what you are talking about within the realm of the older and the younger students. It taps into an interest and an energy that's there ready to be tapped into.
Yes.
Yeah, and the concept you just mentioned, doing it over and over again,
Yeah, repetition.
yeah, I think that's similar to what you were saying. It helps, it's practice.
Oh, you must. So that's another thing that many of my college students
Mhm.
have a problem. I ask them to just do 4 math problems a day. So I might give a whole bunch of homework. It might wind up being like 80 problems. Say, don't do it all in one weekend. Take 2 months. Do 4 problems a day every single day, Sunday through Sunday, right? And I said, I guarantee you in 7 days you'll feel comfortable, right? In 27 days, or 28 days, right? You start to gain some mastery. So you see the coach with the basketball team, he has to come up to the line in a certain way, shoot the ball. And again, run the same exact move over and over and over and over again, right? Those students don't want to quit the team. They do, but that's a coach. Our mothers and our fathers are coaches, but in particular it was my mother that was hounding me. Oh, this education, my father wanted me to do the job, right? But that's common, right? So this type of coaching where repetition, once you have some understanding of it, exercise, right? Many of our students are not getting this at home, you see.
Or at school. They're not getting it at home at
So
all.
school could just give you commercials,
Yeah.
and I'll say it like that. School's not bad. I mean, I went to school and the teacher taught what they taught, and I had to go home and do homework. Once I fulfilled my duty, right? Well, my mother made me fulfill my duty. I'm just being honest, right? Then my grades stayed up. As soon as I started slacking, I couldn't blame the teacher. I couldn't say the teacher
You didn't know
this
who
or
did
that.
it, you did.
Right? By the time I got sort of stable and more mature, I started studying on my own. You see, later on, just like the athletes do, they know, professional athletes know that, okay, season's coming back in, I have to be there on time, I have to do this and that. They don't say, oh, why don't somebody lower the bar so I could get on the NFL or get on the NBA? You need to weaken the test for me. The NBA don't slack up, right? And so we don't need to slack up. Our students, we need to hold our students accountable for being responsible at different ages. And our parents have to do that at first because the teacher can't force a child better than a parent. And you do need force at first. Not unless your child is just like I said, very rarely I see the students that are just really focused on discipline at young ages.
You talked about team oriented. You have them work. Flesh that one out for us.
Yeah, so I'll just say in a general research laboratory, in any research laboratory in the United States, Los Alamos National Labs, and Oakwood National Laboratory, where teams of scientists in different fields and mathematicians get together to solve a national problem, whether it has to do with energy, biological warfare. It's not just a science. They don't just use one type of science. So
they use multidisciplines.
yes, to solve big problems because it's a real world now. It's not a test, right? They're not trying to pass a test, right? So through all of the research experiences that I've engaged students in at the college level, my research used to be in mathematical electrophysiology, and in that one we were writing equations that describe electrical processes in the nerve and the heart and the brain. The nerve pulses and all this sort of stuff, right? So I needed a biologist working with me. I would have a student come on, a biology major, a physics major work with me, a chemistry major, mathematics, and computer science major. And by having students from different majors work together, they get to see how a real world team comes together to solve problems. And lately I've been doing mathematical psychology to make an attempt to develop mathematical models of how the mind manifests itself out in the real world. You see, right? So I've been working with psychology majors and math majors in general, and some engineers. Right? And these students are undergraduates, by the way. They're not graduate. They don't have PhDs or anything.
But
and they help me publish my papers.
You raised them up to that level.
I don't know how to raise them. I provide the atmosphere, put it like that, and they open up. I didn't do it.
Okay.
And you make them want to
I'm gonna take the back seat.
find out the information about it.
Yeah. They I open up the atmosphere on what the research topic is, and they really help me think. They these abilities that we're speaking of, the ability to master. Now we're talking about the ability to create. It's different than mastering. Okay, I know how to do something repetitiously to achieve something. Now they're creating outright ideas that move the research forward. That's why we publish. That's why it's published. It's not a repetition of anyone else's work. And again, these were students at Royal Manhattan Community College. Only a 2-year college, right? Not even a bachelor's. These students, right?
So now they're trying to figure out how much of each part of your brains you need to work.
Even then, right? That's a study.
That's your study.
No, it's so that study deals with like neurophysiology. So originally we were studying.
Well, you need a little bit of each one to make your brains
Oh,
work.
you do. You better believe it.
Yeah.
You do. But now we're on the mind. So there's on the research level, right? There's two different schools of thought. One is that the mind is the sum total of brain activity, and there's another school of thought that says the mind is not the brain, but it associates with the brain to get things done. So we're studying it from the mind is not the brain, but it associates with the brain to get things done. Right?
One
So
can
there's
work
two
without
schools.
the other.
That's right. Right. And so we use mathematics to show that. That's what
Okay.
And the students, like, they're able to think in that area and create. So that's why I said I've been dealing with students from all ends of the spectrum on this idea of can black students master mathematics? And the answer is always yes. Now the reluctance is another thing. You could ask, can human beings walk? And we say, yeah. And some are reluctant. Say, I don't feel like walking right now. That don't mean they can't. That don't mean they can't.
Maybe they don't want to do it.
Right.
That's it.
You mentioned earlier, just briefly, you said that a lower performance or a lower demonstration related to their training, their prior training. So what you're doing is pulling the talent out of them, or creating the doorway for the talent to be expressed. But because they have not been encouraged, or negatively in reverse, as young people, whether in the home or in the school, there's a reluctance. It's something that has to be plumbed beyond just their action, just their
Yes, there's a lot of psychological issues or frictions to mastery in anything in those particular students' lives. The psychological friction, if I'm using the right word, but friction is friction. That, as my wife and I discussed this, we need to have our students to ourselves on a long-term basis so we can help them psychologically also to come up with better definitions of themselves. And in doing that, struggle towards this better definition of themselves. It would allow them to achieve in math, economics, basketball, they can fly an aircraft or whatever. So we need to have our children with us on a long-term basis. What I mean by that is have programs in our community, places in our community that intentionally go after our students' gifts, because they're already gifted. That's why I said I always take the back seat when they say I think this and that, right? I provide the atmosphere, and I love the students. Dr. Shabazz used to, my teacher, Dr. Addur Shabazz, used to say teachers need to know and understand what it is they are going to teach. They need to believe that all students could learn and do mathematics. They need to love and respect their students. So those things I apply, right? The rest of it, the students come with legs, they come with brains, they come with eyeballs and stuff, and they use those in a loving environment. The other thing, back to the reluctance though, we still need to work with many of our students on their reluctance and friction, the psychological friction, to achieve anything or to struggle in anything.
How often have you seen black children who can do it in their head? How often have you seen or heard of black children who can do it in their head, they don't need paper, who have been penalized for that?
Well, yeah, so I'll name a few instances. So when I was in Ohio, we lived in Ohio in 1993 to 94. I was tutoring in a church at the time, and I tutored some young students, like 9-year-olds, and some high school students. So one of the 9-year-olds was acting up. His name was Damien, by the way. It's like the movies, right? He was acting up, so I said, Damien, come to the board and solve this problem. I was trying to embarrass the young brother, just to make him calm down. So I had him, he was 9 years old, so I had him do the high school work. So he stared at the problem. It was an algebra problem. And all he did was ask what these letters mean. That's all I had to tell him. Then he went up to the board and wrote the answer without going through the steps that I was teaching a high school student. So that was my first instance of seeing what you're speaking about, students that don't need to write. I don't know what Damien is doing now. That was 1993, right? But then when I asked him, he was going through activity in his mind. And I used the same method to teach students today on how to, you could arrive at your conclusion in a short manner, right? So he knew how to figure, right? Two things. He was bored with what he was doing when he was there, so that's why he was fighting other students and stuff, right? And, but also he had some training on how to figure, you see. And all he needed to know is what those symbols on the board meant, and he put it together in his mind, just like a video game. Just like a video game. They know what those symbols mean, right? Then, if we speed that up to now, I've had students when I was teaching at State University of New York at Varnum that did not need to show their work in order to arrive at an answer, right? In my class, that's fine. I tell them, look, what I'm teaching is a method that I have to use this method to communicate the idea to the class. I said, if you come up and create a shorter method, that's your business. And I said, if it's better than mine, I'm gonna use it. So on the test, you could just, I told them, if you could see, just write the answer. You don't need a walking stick when you're blind, right? When you're blind, you need a walking stick. You need a seeing eye dog. You need these methods. These are called methods. If you could see, you don't need that. You just walk right to the store. So I told them, for the students that do need the method, I tell them that the method guides them. It helps them to see for them. And for others, no. But then some of my colleagues, or many of my colleagues, would penalize their students for not showing all the steps.
Mm.
Instead of penalizing them, ask them how they thought about this, because it's some ingenuity going on that's outside of the textbook. That's what we want. We don't want to keep repeating textbook stuff. Gosh, for the next 50 years. You know how old calculus is? Seriously, these old methods is around since the like 1800s. Don't get me wrong, it's useful, right? But gosh, if a student comes up and beats that, and is able to keep beating, to reproduce it, don't penalize them and then make them not want to create in the first place, you see, that beats them down. So I see that all the time. Students say, show your work. I mean, teachers say, show your work. Students don't show their work. Start taking off points here, take off points. Finally, students like, what am I doing there? Yeah. That's a drag, right?
Mm.
That's a drag.
and this is just short. The sister related to me how her nephew could do the work in his head, and the teacher penalized. This is down in South Carolina. This some years ago, and boy, she's a Mensa, the one who's talking to me, and that obviously runs through the family, that high degree of learning. And I would always ask her, how's your nephew doing? Well, the nephew became a problem. And the last time I asked her, which is some years back, the boy was in jail. But the boy was, there is a thing, and I'm dealing with, I only deal with black people. When I say I only deal with black people, the examples that I give, and that I feel, and it's been more than just one situation, I feel that that lack of encouraging them when they come up with the new formula, new steps that you just laid out. Yours is strictly educational. In other words, your approach is strictly, it blesses everyone who comes into that zone.
Yes.
And why not?
Right.
You know,
I can learn.
it's a why not situation.
Yes.
Why shouldn't black children be taught properly in these schools? Why should there be an elite school? Why should there be a gifted and talented school below 96th Street, and all the children running through this neighborhood are gifted and talented? Anyway, all the children in the city, they have some kind of gift and talent.
That's right.
How do you, I want you to respond to that, and then talk about how you approach remedial, so-called remedial learning, which Dr. Addur Shabazz said he doesn't do.
Say get rid of. Right. So you asked me a few questions. Like my wife says I don't like to multitask, but I'll pay attention. This is fun. Let's have fun at home. I get on the remediation first. So at BMCC, Broad Manhattan Community College, I've been, when I first got there, I asked, I said, what if we got rid of remediation, right? And so I had backlash from the department.
Mm-hmm.
And the chairperson said, well, we can't do that. Even the Vice President Sadie Bragg, she was big on remediation at the time. She's an excellent assistant. She passed, so she's a mathematician. Yeah. And so that was in 2009. So by 2015, I got this grant through the U.S. Department of Education that allowed us to sort of like restructure and enhance all of the sciences and mathematics at Broad Manhattan Community College. So still on, I was like, how could we get rid of remediation and yet create math classes that take in students that are what I call so-called remedial students and still have them perform, right? So that was still an argument. But I had a grant to do it, so I was allowed to write experiments to come up. So first thing I did was to, where you would have to take 3 remedial classes, which is 3 semesters of remediation possibly, I whittled it down to 1. The school allowed me to do that. So students coming and needing remediation, at least they had to just take 1 class. Then I said, well, let's have it that we combine that so-called remedial class with some science. Here we go with the hands-on again. So mind you, I started this in 2015 with this grant. So just this year, I was allowed to work with, I'm saying allowed to, there was no backlash. I was allowed to work with the biology department, assist her there in her labs. So I designed a pre-calculus math course to match the biology experiments that the students would do. So they'll be doing experiments and taking measurements, here we go, watching bacteria grow and all that. And then we'll be writing up the mathematics to it. Or like I would say, using mathematics in the proper term to achieve a goal in biology. That's in our lessons, lesson 13. Using mathematics in the proper term, right? So I was allowed to do that. So this fall, really starting next week, I'll begin with those students. But look at how long it takes at a college or at an institution to get something done that we know works. I started in 2009, right? That's 10 years ago. And then 2015, I get the money to do it. It's like Congress or something. Yeah, and then the money hits the...
Just fade away.
Yeah, so my solution to that is what we're working on now. I do programs in the community. One, I was working in Harlem, we had Boys and Girls Club in Harlem. Grant House, we did a program. This is the clean energy program that we've been doing. We even did it at Columbia University where we had the students from the grant houses come up, and these were junior high school students. We worked with a group of high school students in Brownsville where they had to design a city, and they had to design what Brownsville would look like in 100 years from now, right? So I said, okay, we're going to do it as a hands-on project, and they had, solar panels on the buildings and stuff. So we showed that off in Brownsville, right? Lately, I've been in East New York doing a program, but now notice that this program is jumping around, and it's not all year long. So my wife and I keep saying my wife and I, she usually thinks of what specifically to do in the community and keep us in the community that helps, that's valid, right, with our own gifts. So my wife and I are now working towards raising funds for a facility where we can have clean energy science, all of the arts, sports, gaming, all in one facility where students can come year round, and get science training year round, combined with the arts and the teamwork mentality of sports and physical education, which is really wound up being a school. But we're not even called there. We're not trying to go through no board ed thing, because then that takes years for approval. But if we get funds to start it and students come and benefit, and we have our geniuses create tech startups themselves, right? That's all we want. They create a living for themselves. So I just quickly jumped to the solution, right? Even though we've been doing the solution here and there.
To try to build it up.
Right, build it up so that we can do it mass scale, because really, the program I do now only takes up to 20 students. So one semester we get 20 students, and we don't see them anymore. We just gather them for like 6 months. They get a good training now, but by the time they go back to school and go through whatever, who knows if they're going to be these engineers in the future, right? But if I have something year round, which is a long-term program, we can cultivate them. We also, in our program, we want to have parent coaching skills, where parents learn how to act like coaches, like my mother used to act. My mother wasn't a coach, but she made sure we got our education.
She was a coach for you.
She didn't let, that's what I'm saying. She was straight up, and my mother knew how to figure. She knew how to figure. Really, all my aunts knew how to do that, and uncles. The training they got, like she was born 1927, training they got, they were all just knew how to figure and do what they need to do, right? And there was no Einsteins coming through school teaching them. They put the time and effort in, right? And they and schools were different than obviously than they are now. I don't want to talk too much about the public school system today.
Right.
I'm just saying that I did that before. I don't get in trouble for it. There's no focus. It's a moot situation. What I'm saying, right? So what we want today is parent coaching skills, where parents learn how to spot their children's gifts, spot it, and stick with their children until that gift grows into fruition. As opposed to saying, yeah, you know, wow, my child has a good knack for mathematics, and okay, and look out the window and let
You gotta
life happen.
keep coaching.
No, you need a coach. Because when I'm quite sure when that coach saw Michael Jordan, they didn't just say, oh, let him practice on his shot in the basement. No, they great, you coming close to me, right? So we want our parents to be able to do that, and learn how not to get off that path, even though life takes its course. We learn how to do that with our children. You know, as a family, we go up and down with all kind of struggles, right? For real. But my son, my two sons and my daughter, their gifts, my wife and I stick to that. You know, we go through financial problems, emotional problems, whatever. You just take your financial problem with you, right? You ain't gonna get up off this. It's almost like fighting for the struggle, right?
Questions, wisdom table. Pardon me. This is the wisdom table, and our guest is Brother Sims, Professor Sims. He's of Manhattan Community College, and he's pretty well answered the question, can black children master math and science? And questions, comments?
Well, you mentioned Dr. Shabazz,
Yes.
and I reading up on him, I know he would challenge his students by asking the question, how many in here would like to be mathematicians? This was one reading I did.
Okay.
And, you know, they look at him, and he said, if you want to be a mathematician, you can be, you know, and I'll tell you how. And I just thought that was so motivational. You know, we're all scared of math, supposedly.
Okay.
And he would say, if you're willing to work with me,
Yes.
and work hard, you could be a mathematician.
Right.
So right there, he had the children
Yes.
in the palm of his hands,
That's
really.
right.
I mean, and I think what you mentioned about, I know this concept of doing it over and over again.
Yes, repetition.
Right, I know you learned that one.
Yes. And Dr. Shabazz used to tell us that also. When we were students, he said, you're gonna have to do these homework problems. He said, you could understand all you want right now, but you're gonna have to do these, solve many, many problems, stay up late at night. He said, to master anything is, what did he say, 99% sweat and 1% genius. That's how I see it. 99% sweat and 1% genius to master anything. Because we're all geniuses before we sweat, right?
Well,
Questions, comments?
99% sweat.
Okay, since we have grandparents here and parents, what are 2 or 3 coaching skills that you can share? Principles that you can share, as you were saying earlier, teaching parents how to be good coaches. So, what can you lead us with?
Yeah, so one thing on a psychological point, allow our children to experiment in the areas of mathematics and science without being critical of them. I do that in the classroom myself, and I'm saying it even at home. Allow our, if our children are solving a math problem and they fail at it, they don't get the right answer, have a discussion on their method, rather than you got the wrong answer, you're not good, because then that goes into them. So this is a coaching skill with having the right attitude while we're allowing the students to experiment. Because the experiment, even with the wrong answer, might show some other creativity. That's one. Also, go through what it takes to stay up with your child or grandchild to solve these problems and have them do it. Coach can't be tired. Coach can't get tired. Yeah, mainly those 2 things, because that having a student, making sure that you hold your child responsible to their work is the biggest deal. It's the biggest deal. And the other one is not having a judgmental environment that they experiment is the other. Their creativity and stuff comes out anyway, right? But if it's real free, if it's like a loving environment, boy, it'll like rise quick, you see. And you still may have to force them to do the work. Look, at young ages, look, doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the child. I know that was me. If they're at the table crying over some stinking times table, that was me. You see, all right. And my mother just said, she didn't tell me to go away enough. I had to sit there and do it with tears in my eyes until they dried up and still
Until you get it right.
Right? So yeah, those two things are non-judgmental, provide a non-judgmental environment at home, and make sure you keep up on student work. But also, I want to go back to having things in the environment that intentionally, a lot of hands-on things in the environment that intentionally have the students doing. Whether it's, again, building something in a home, a shelf or whatever. A lot of young teens like that. Put together their furniture and stuff. I mean, and you're not going to be buying furniture every month. I'm just saying. But we could buy science kits. So the clean energy kits cost about $279, right? So we could buy those kits if you got 2 children. Well, usually four children to a kit works well. And they build wind turbines. They experiment with hydrogen fuel cells. It comes with a solar panel. It comes with all of that. And here, again, that's hands-on. And whatever level they start in, right, the types of questions they come up with gives room for research. That causes research. They could go online to finances. You could have a discussion with them on why do you think this is this way or that way. But having these things in the environment to make science and mathematics a part of their home culture is very important. You see, very important.
This parent coaching skills, I'm fascinated with that because I think that, and it's to teach the children how to spot, teach the parents how to spot their children's genius, their children's skills. I think that's a great program.
So that children they don't grow up haphazard.
Right.
And since all of our children, Brother Leroy said, have gifts, right? So usually we have a family with 3 to 5 children. One of them gets to go to college and do all of this, and the other ones are this and that, right? But if we know how to spot each one of their gifts and we stick with each one of them,
Right.
there's a greater chance in all 5 children manifest and come into fruition because we didn't let them grow up haphazard. You see.
Yeah, that should be brought into the school
It's intentional.
immediately.
It has to be done at home.
Home
Immediately.
first.
It's easier to do something in the school. We could spend, we could spend a lot of time trying to convince the principals to do it, the PTA to do it, to this, and then a good 3 to 5 years could go by, if any, before it happens. Same thing at a college. That's why, to me, it's easier to just get in the community and do. Case in point with these carpenters, right? When we wanted the carpenters to come train us to build this shed, the carpenters union said, well, it's going to take, after we do this paperwork, it's going to take about 3 or 4 months to send you a carpenter. I said, don't let me go through the union. So I called this brother up. I said, man, can you just come and spend like 2 hours with us, and if you could come less twice a week or whatever, just be there. He said, all right. If we got it done like that. Forget the paperwork, forget the bureaucracy of going through this union or school. And so, on the other part of our solution, now it's my complaint among my own, right? The black PhDs and professionals in mathematics and science needs to be present in our community doing things. Not giving a career speech once a year, because we usually get that, right? We come in and we sit in front of a group of students and say, you can be a mathematician, you can be a scientist, then we split, right? But like myself, I'm in a community at least 2 times a week for 2 hours each visit, right? Teaching this clean energy course as I teach I'll teach a course twice a day for 2 hours a day at the college, right? Because that's the same college semester. And I make myself present in the evenings. I can do that. I'm quite sure my peers can do that, right? They're not on Mars. They're not on Mars. All they have to do is come to the community. We could find a church, a community thing, and say, look, I want to teach mathematics or science twice a week for 2 hours, 2 hours a night. We could do that. If we could watch Monday Night Football for 2 hours, and then towards the end of the season, it comes on Thursdays too. Some people are protesting football. But I'm saying, if we could sit in front of the screen, I'm talking about adults, and watch football twice a week, right? We can't come out to the community twice a week and work with our children, right? So this is my complaint. I'm stating it like that among my peers, because I don't know where we are. Well, I know where we are. We ain't coming out. I see them at our meetings and what do you call these things, conferences, and they're geniuses. The black scientists and mathematicians they're geniuses, but they're not present in our community producing more. You see? And that's us solving our problem. That's not us going to the Board of Ed, not us going to college accreditation. That's us being with our babies.
I have a question, and it's been bugging me for. My daughter teaches college. They pull her in the office because she gave a whole class 100 on their test. And they told her she could not do that. And she's very disgusted with it because why are you failing every other student?
Right.
And they deserve it.
Yeah, she
They
has to
made
fight
it.
that. She has to fight, and she'll be commended for her fight. She'll get beat up a little bit. But she
Well,
has to
that's
fight
what
that.
she's going through. She's getting beat up.
Because it ain't not gonna happen. I mean, she's gonna eat, she's gonna breathe. God feeds her just as God feeds her enemies.
And now she's like half of the, they're disgusted after they found out that what happened. Because they're asking her, if I passed the test, why I can't get 100? Why you gotta give me 75?
That happens in some colleges too. Professors said they don't give aids. I mean, all of this is psychological stuff that has nothing to do with academics. So, a lot of times we put our children in front of these teachers, and they got these psychological issues with their own selves and their own achievements, and then they put it on our babies. Figure, if you 8, 9, 10 years old, you don't know your teachers off the level.
Oh.
Yeah, you don't. You don't. Then you start blaming yourself because the profession. But yeah, that's have your daughter fight. She has to fight.
What level is she at?
She got a high
High
grade.
school or
No,
college?
she teach college.
She teaches at college.
She's up the top. But she's,
So when I was teaching at Morehouse College, well, I'll say at Spelman, I taught a calculus class there. The lowest grade was an A-. This was calculus 1, right? Those sisters, they got A's, right? The ones that got an A- really got an A-. Now they came to argue with me,
Yeah,
with the students,
and this is
which they
why-
should. I showed them, and they said you can't boost it up to an A. I said no, this is not fair. But I'm saying that even an A- is good. It's good. And then at Morehouse, I've given like 95% of the class an A because that's what they got. I can't take away from the students.
well, that's what they wanted to do.
And,
Take
and
away
I-
something that they earned.
no one ever asked me not to do it, but I would have a fight. I'm glad that I don't want it.
Yeah, well, they
Because
asked her not
for
to
going to
do
career.
it.
Yeah, I would.
So she
It'd be a fight.
So what are some keys for her daughter? What are some of the things you called on from within or from without to deal with?
From within, stand her ground. She'll
And
be
that's
fine.
what she doing.
That's right. She right.
She took all the papers and everything
Yeah. She'll be
to
good
the
at that.
office and asked them, I'm not gonna do it. You do it.
That's right. You put it on them. That's right. Right.
Because she work hard with them.
Yes.
They come to her house and they sit down and they study.
Wow.
Okay.
That's beautiful.
You know what they don't understand? They go to the library every Saturday and they study.
So she has other forces watching her.
I guess that's.
She's a Shabazz. She's a Shabazz.
Yeah.
She's a Shabazz.
Yeah.
She has
She believes stand up for her right. If she wrong, she gonna say I'm wrong.
But she's 1,000% correct right now.
What's the subject?
Hmm?
What's the subject?
What's her subject? She's a math.
Math?
No, she teaches biology. She's a nursing teacher.
All right. All right. See what I'm saying? That's excellent.
She takes 2 days out of her days. She goes to college and teach.
See that? It's beautiful.
What she trying to do, one of her teachers told her, you will never be a nurse. So she told her, just because you said that, you white and I'm black, I'm gonna prove it to you. And she got her bachelor and everything that you need.
That's it. So she's a fighter.
Yeah.
She's a fighter, yeah. Well, you tell her that I say God will keep feeding her the same way
She
God
knows
feeds her
that.
enemies.
She told her God will help me get to wherever I need
That's
and for her.
So
And she
she's
goes
fine.
on about her business.
She's fine. Yeah, she'll watch them crumble. She'll watch her enemies crumble. Yeah, 'cause that's tough. I never had that problem. I don't want it.
Yeah,
But
well.
that's tough. That's tough.
I just hope it don't let me have to go to jail and pay her.
You say you know you will. That's what my daughter.
That's right, I must have a Bible in one hand and a pail in the other.
All right, so we're summing up. Any comments, any questions, observations? Sister Shirley? Sister Eva?
No, I'm good.
Yeah. I thought it was a great session.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it.
Very much.
The wisdom table.
We just gotta figure out how to wake these young people up. You know? If they're not shooting one another, they refuse to go to school. And then when they do decide to go back, you gotta come out of your pocket of big bills.
Yes. Oh, so lastly, so we homeschooled our children, my wife and I, from the time they were born, and we didn't register them with any public school system in Georgia, New York, or Louisiana, wherever we were at. We wrote the curriculum. You know, I mean, since I'm a college professor, why not? Right? And we wrote the curriculum according. We didn't comply with any testing. They didn't come through Regents exams and all of that. Then when it came time for college, well, my oldest son, he got right into Morehouse. The other one was too young, so he cried. Because Morehouse said, we can't have him that young on campus at night, and all this kind of stuff. And we were living in Louisiana. But then when we got up here, they both got into the city, CUNY. And now my daughter's waiting. She's 17. She's a ballerina. But she enjoys mathematics. She says she just does math because it's necessary. But anyway, but we homeschool our children, and we didn't even think about or worry about complying with the Board of Education system in general.
Well, as long as you keep their grades and everything up, so when they go to take the test.
Well, we let them take the SAT test, which is
That's what I'm
college.
saying.
Just for,
As long as they pass that SAT, they were okay.
What was good, I tested them in the middle, like in between. Dr. Shabazz was still alive then. So my sons, I figured after we did all this research and stuff, I had them present at a conference of professionals. And so I put them on stage and had them speak. And when they did well, I said, I guess you passed. You passed what we did in homeschool. So I consider that a test, like when you go for your PhD, you present, you have to defend your work in front of professionals, the committee. So I sat them in front of the audience to do that. All I did was, I got up, I said the title of our talk, and I sat down. And Dr. Shabazz loved that he was there. Because I call they're like the grand students of Dr. Shabazz. I'm the father, he's the grand in their sons. Because they took classes with him too at Grambling State University. And at that time they were like 11 years old, and 13.
the way I met our brother, I was talking to a family up in the Bronx, Brother Kadir and Sister Samaya, and they had homeschooled all their children basically. So I said, well, how do you talking to them in the street, Gun Hill Road? I said, so how do you teach them that? He said, well, we're not the only ones that teach them. We for example, we got this brother coming from Farmingdale, and he taught them. I said, well, what does he do? He said, well, yesterday he said he brought a bull's heart. I said, he brought a bull's heart. He said, they said, yeah, a bull. I said, what did he do? He said he cut it open and showed him the...
Yeah, we were doing biology, so they needed a heart. Right? Why use a textbook when you can just get the whole heart? And we got the brain, the cow's brain,
everything right there.
Dissected that. And they studied that before they studied the book, so they learned from hands on. Yeah.
What is this part? What that part? What is that tube they go to?
Physical anatomy in your face. Put gloves on.
How much you think this heart have to beat to keep that heart alive?
That's it.
You got it face to face, not book to book.
That's right. That's right.
So
Then you turn around and you have a meal.
That's my wife was saying. Where you gonna store
That's
this
what
stuff?
they did.
So where you gonna store this stuff at?
and this has been the wisdom table, and this has been a classroom, motivating classroom. The next session we're gonna ask the brother the significance of hidden figures. We're gonna ask him to tell us about the impact of Dr. Addur Shabazz on him and other students, his approaches, etc., and how Dr. Shabazz was so successful at the schools that he was at, he was chased off the campuses.
Chased out.
That's the story.
Every single one.
Yeah.
So, I want to thank you all for it. We had a full house today, and it's going to keep getting better and better and bigger and bigger. You know, we'll have more people coming in the studio very soon. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Big time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace and blessings.
Thank
Peace
you.
and blessings.
And